Today is Monday, May 22nd. We'll tell you which high-profile Republican is the latest to enter the 2024 presidential race, and it's not Ron DeSantis. Also, why the FBI is facing pushback about a surveillance program almost up for renewal. Should it be allowed to continue? And where wildfires in Canada are now affecting air quality in the U.S. Plus, a farewell to a football legend, Hollywood action hero, and civil rights activist. Adidas has a new plan for more than $1 billion worth of Yeezy products. And which kind of car buyers are getting the best deals right now? Those stories and more news to know in today's episode. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. There's another high-profile Republican entering the 2024 presidential race. U.S. Senator Tim Scott filed paperwork with the Federal Election Commission on Friday. And today, he's planning to make the big announcement in his hometown of North Charleston, South Carolina. Already, Scott has been on what he called a Faith in America tour. He traveled the country, particularly early voting states like Iowa and New Hampshire, sharing his vision for America, mostly focusing on cultural issues. Scott is the only Black Republican in the Senate and has long voiced conservative views while talking about race and his experience as a Black man in America. Of course, he has a lot of competition for the GOP nomination, going up against former President Trump and former ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley. Other high-profile Republicans expected to enter the race soon are Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former Vice President Mike Pence, and more. The FBI is facing some new scrutiny over a surveillance program. Newly declassified documents show the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court found agents improperly searched a database for information 278,000 times between 2016 and 2020. And that includes times they tracked down information about Americans without warrants as part of criminal investigations. For example, during investigations related to the January 6th Capitol attack, as well as protests after the 2020 killing of George Floyd that turned into riots. The court said late last year that the agents had no reasonable basis to expect that they would get evidence of a crime from their searches, even if they thought they did. The New York Times says the Bureau did make changes after these violations. But that's not enough for some critics who say the FBI has shown it cannot be trusted. The ACLU says any searches of the database are unlawful. But law enforcement officials and the Biden administration say the powers, when used responsibly, are necessary to fight against terrorism, espionage, and international cybercrime. Next up, lawmakers will have to decide one way or another soon, since the FBI's powers to access their surveillance program are set to expire later this year. The powerful group of 7 economies came together to address a couple of democracy's greatest threats, Russia and China. Adding symbolism to all of it, the G7 summit was held in the same city obliterated by the world's first atomic bomb, Hiroshima, Japan. Normally, the G7 includes just the 7 member states, the US, the UK, Germany, France, Japan, Italy, and Canada, as well as the European Union. But this weekend, there was another seat at the table for Ukraine's president, who was building momentum for his country's war effort. And President Biden took the opportunity to announce new military aid for Ukraine, worth $375 million. The U.S. also agreed to allow training on American-made F-16 fighter jets, laying the groundwork for them to eventually be transferred to Ukraine. And all G7 nations unveiled a slew of new sanctions and other measures meant to punish Russia for its invasion. Russian officials responded by slamming the G7 for, as they put it, indulging in their own greatness. The group took a different approach, though, in its comments on China, which happens to be the world's second-largest economy. The leaders said they were looking for constructive and stable relations with the Chinese government. But President Biden again promised to help Taiwan defend itself against a potential attack from China. And with that, China also responded, telling G7 members to focus on addressing the various issues they have at home. The G7 leaders also talked about strengthening the global economy, combating climate change, and nuclear threats. Sadly, a soccer stadium in El Salvador became the site of a deadly crush over the weekend. Salvadorian officials say tickets were oversold and fake tickets were issued. So it was extremely crowded when a stampede of fans tried to push their way through a gate into the stadium to watch the match. 12 people ultimately died. Hundreds were hurt. Now the president of El Salvador says everyone will be investigated, including the teams, the company that manages the stadium, the ticket office, and the league. The Salvadorian Soccer Federation said in a statement it regretted what happened and voiced support for the victims' families. It suspended all national-level matches throughout the rest of the weekend. It's already been an especially active wildfire season in Canada, with millions of acres burned so far. And now smoke from dozens of wildfires has drifted across the border into the U.S. Air quality alerts have been issued in several states, including Colorado, Utah, Montana, and Idaho. The smoky conditions are expected to stick around today, too. And even if a cold front eventually pushes smoke away, more is expected to head this way. Canada's wildfire season typically lasts through October. We have much more news for you still ahead, but first, I want to tell you about our sponsor, ZocDoc. Finding a great doctor you trust can be tricky. There's the doctor's skill set and personality to consider, then the question of whether or not they take your insurance, and when you can actually get in for an appointment. If all of that stresses you out sometimes, like it does me whenever I need to find a new doctor, then check out the tool called ZocDoc. It's designed to make the whole search process a whole lot simpler. ZocDoc is the only free app that lets you find and book doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, are available when you need them, and treat almost every condition under the sun. No more wasting time calling around so many different doctors' offices only to find out that they don't take your insurance or can't get you in for another 6 months. ZocDoc is set up to help you find quality doctors and avoid all the surprises or unexpected issues along the way. Millions of people use ZocDoc to find the right doctor for them. So go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Well, today, it's Victoria Day in Canada. The holiday began as a celebration to honor the British Queen Victoria, who ruled for most of the 19th century. It first became a Canadian national holiday in 1901, the year Queen Victoria died. At first, it was celebrated on the Queen's birthday, May 24th. But later, Canada decided it would always be on a Monday, either on May 24th or the Monday before it. Now the day is treated like the unofficial start of summer for many Canadians. It is usually marked with parades, outdoor events, and summer activities like camping and fireworks displays. Well, the world is saying goodbye to a man who's considered one of the greatest football players of all time. Jim Brown passed away at 87 years old. It's not clear what caused his death, but his family says he died peacefully at his home. He leaves behind quite the legacy. Brown dominated the NFL for 9 years in the 50s and 60s, but at the peak of his career, he declared himself a highly paid, over-glamorized gladiator and turned to acting and activism. He appeared in more than 50 movies, including The Dirty Dozen and 100 Rifles, which was the first major Hollywood film with a love scene between a black man and a white woman. Over the years, he also called for social change, worked to promote economic development in black neighborhoods, and more. But Brown also was arrested more than half a dozen times, in most cases when women accused him of violent behavior. Still, after his death, the woman he was married to for at least 26 years wrote a tribute on Instagram, saying, quote, "To our family, he was a loving and wonderful husband, father, and grandfather. Our hearts are broken." It was a mixed bag of emotions at the Preakness Stakes this weekend. It was the first major race in 2 years with horses from Hall of Fame trainer Bob Baffert since he was suspended in 2021 when Kentucky Derby winner Medina Spirit failed a drug test. Well, the day of his comeback, one of his horses stumbled in a race and hurt his leg so badly that he had to be put down. Then just hours later, another one of Baffert's horses won the whole thing. With that, Baffert broke the record for the most Preakness wins by a trainer with 8 wins. But the victory was overshadowed by the death earlier in the day. Plus, this comes in the aftermath of 7 horse deaths in the lead up to the Kentucky Derby. So there's also more concern ahead of the final Triple Crown race, Belmont Stakes. Adidas has a new plan to get rid of its huge inventory of Yeezy sneakers. Bloomberg says the company has $1.3 billion worth of Yeezy shoes left over from its old partnership with rapper and designer Kanye West, who now goes by Ye. Remember, Adidas ended its deal with Yeezy after Ye made a series of anti-Semitic remarks last year. Well, now the sportswear brand says it will start selling Yeezys again at the end of this month, and a significant amount of the proceeds will be donated to charities that work to fight discrimination and hate speech. Still, Ye will receive some royalties from the sale in line with his Adidas contract. Starting today, teenagers in more than a dozen cities are able to create their own Uber accounts to take rides without supervision. Well, without in-person supervision anyway. A new Teen Accounts feature lets 13 to 17-year-olds set up accounts as part of a family profile. Parents are able to track their kids' rides in real time and call their driver. Uber also says only experienced and highly rated drivers will be connected with teenagers. And teens will be able to use an audio recording feature to record the trip within the app if they feel uncomfortable. The teen rides are available already in places like Phoenix, Arizona, Minneapolis, New York City, Kansas City, and Dallas. Uber says it hopes to expand teen rides to the rest of the country soon. That's it for the main news, so now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. And today we are talking about car prices and how the market is much different than it used to be. But first, this episode is sponsored by CastleFlex. I'm sure you've heard how stretching is such a big thing right now. There are new stretch places opening up across the country, and for good reasons. In fact, a recent study found that stretching is even more effective than brisk walking for certain health benefits. But just like anything, there are ways to go about it that are likely better than others. My new go-to for stretching is CastleFlex, and it's my husband's new favorite as well. Really, we've both been dealing with some back issues in the last year or so. Mine was originally from a car accident that I thought was healed, but after lifting a toddler every day, I've realized it's really not. And my husband has been dealing with something even worse, herniated discs. So we both really needed a solution. CastleFlex is already making a big difference for both of us. In 2021, the inventor was struggling with herniated discs himself, and that's why he created the device called CastleFlex. It healed him in less than a year. So learn more at CastleFlex, flex with 2 X's, castleflex.com, and be sure to use our code NEWS10 for 10% off. Again, follow the link in our episode notes and then get 10% off with the code NEWS10, NEWS10. Okay, now back to Money Monday. Car prices that have been rising for years now could finally be coming down, but it really depends on what kind of car you're looking for. Kelley Blue Book data shows average prices have fallen below listing prices for the last 2 months. That said, the listing prices are higher than they used to be, since the pandemic really changed the auto market. For example, when the virus first started spreading, factories shut down. And even when they opened, semiconductor chips needed in a lot of cars were hard to come by. So manufacturers prioritized giving chips to their highest priced models, mostly trucks and SUVs. And with that, it's still tough for many Americans to afford a vehicle. TransUnion says the average new car payment in the first quarter of this year rose to $736 a month, up from $585 a month just 2 years earlier. Bottom line, if you're in the market for a high-end car, you might be able to take advantage of incentives right now that can get you a great deal. And if you can pay cash to avoid high interest rates, even better. But on the low end, there's still a lot of competition for vehicles, and it could be at least a few more months before things start turning a corner. All right, thank you so much for listening today and making us part of your routine. And we are always so grateful if you're willing to share the show with at least one person this week. Let them know why you listen and where to find it. Thank you so much for helping to spread the word about us. All right, we'll be back with much more news to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.